Hello, and welcome to another week of Burning Hearts, our 2026 Bible reading plan. This week we are wrapping up our readings from Leviticus. We're reading Leviticus 26. We're doing 3 chapters from Numbers, and then we're also starting Deuteronomy. There's a lot that we are getting through this week. We're wrapping up Leviticus with this chapter 26, which is so interesting because when it comes down to it, the core of it is... and it's something that's so common throughout Scripture, actually. Just listen to God and do what He says, and things will go well for you. And disregard what God says and don't do what He says, and things are going to go bad for you. That's like, so much of the wisdom literature is about that. So many Proverbs is about that. So much of the law is about this. Even Jesus, when He says, like, listen to what I say and do it, and you got a house on the rock. Listen to it and don't do it, well, house in the sand, right? This chapter, it's so interesting because it ends by God saying, like, if they don't listen, things are going to go bad. But if their uncircumcised, this is verse 41, if their uncircumcised heart is humbled and they make amends for their iniquity, then I will remember their covenant. And so basically it's, so long as you don't want me to be gracious and merciful, then I won't. But as soon as your heart changes, as soon as you, then I will be. And there's so much of that. So it's an interesting chapter to end Leviticus on. And then we're having some chapters from Numbers, starting with chapter 14. I want to say to you, if you can, read Numbers 13 also. Because this is the one where the spies are sent into the land that they're supposed to inherit. And this is where things go bad because the spies come back with this negative report about how the land is great, but the people there are scary, basically. And there's giants in the land. And Joshua and Caleb are like, don't worry about it. God's got this. The land is great. And the Israelites don't listen to them, and they don't want to go in. And this doesn't go well. God is unhappy with them, and because of that, they have to keep wandering in the wilderness. And that generation doesn't get to go into the promised land. There's big consequences for that in chapter 13, and then in 14 is where those consequences really come. Numbers has a lot of great stories in them. If you can, like, read the stories in Numbers they're so important. Like, there's one, I think it's Numbers 20 maybe, about how Moses is supposed to speak to a rock and make water comes out. But instead, he doesn't trust God, and he strikes the rock twice, and that has bad consequences for Moses. Numbers 21 is about the snakes that kill people, and about the bronze snake that Moses makes. And this is an important one only because in the Gospel of John, chapter 3, Jesus understands himself as just like the bronze snake that Moses lifts up in the wilderness. And that is to say, Jesus, when he's lifted up on the cross, if you look to Jesus, if you trust in Jesus, he will take away that which poisons you. Just like if you were bitten by a snake, but you looked up to the bronze snake that Moses lifts up, you will be healed. Fascinating, and it's fascinating that Jesus kind of thinks of himself like that bronze snake. Very interesting. And then the last chapter that we're going to do in Numbers, which again, we're skipping so much gold in Numbers, and so just read the whole thing if you can, is the chapter, the third one of the kind of oracles of Balaam. One of it's a weird story, but it's kind of a prophet who is hired to curse Israel, and instead he ends up blessing them. But there's stuff in there about the future king. There's kind of like Messiah talk in that, really interesting. And then we're also starting Deuteronomy. And I'll talk more about Deuteronomy next week because it's all about that. But Deuteronomy 6, which is our Friday reading, is like uber important. It's super important. It's where Israel is given what's called the Shema, which is the central prayer of the life of Jewish people back then, and I believe today as well. It's a famous one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord alone. There's a lot of different translations of it. This is where it says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. And then teaches them to teach these words to your children again and again, and write them on the doorposts and bind them around your arms and wrists. It's a really an important chapter. Deuteronomy, just like Numbers, just like Leviticus and Exodus and everything else, we can't read all of it. It's just too much, but take your time and read what you can, and definitely take your time with Deuteronomy 6 because it's awesome. But anyway, make sure to check out the Bible Project videos I'll put up for both Numbers and Deuteronomy. They are fantastic. Lots of great resources there, especially on the Shema when we get to that on Friday. Ask me questions. Come and talk to me. I'd love to hear from you. Email me or whatever. All right. Have a great week of reading.